And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who really wants a nice, calm meal. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And boy, oh boy, is it ever a beautiful day here on Milleronia. Yes, it's true, I create the weather here on Milleronia, but there's no reason not to say how gorgeous it is. And boy, oh boy, is it ever. And the music always makes Colonel Jeff and me happy. And of course, that's the Robert Osborne Orchestra and the Elizabeth Taylor Dancers, featuring boy tenor Jim Broderick asking the musical question, do lava cakes on Milleronia use real lava? Yes, Jim, they do. It's always, well, I'll put it this way. It's not real lava for you or for Colonel Jeff. I mean, the lava cakes are like lava cakes. They're chocolate cakes, and they have, well, a big spoonful, a giant spoonful of hot chocolate in there, which takes the place of lava. But if it's someone I don't like, he gets the real lava. And that's just the way it is. And I'm sorry to say it wouldn't be you. It would be someone who just missed going to the volcano, and I probably should have sent, say, a few years ago. But now, he might have made a snarky remark just beforehand. He can count on real lava in that lava cake. And, of course, people don't want to eat it. They don't do it voluntarily. They have to be held down. You know, Ollie Dungmeister just comes over and he's still tough. And he can do it alone, but he's not a child anymore. He's getting a little older, long in the tooth. And, a couple of guys will hold the victim down. Because you know what? Lava is, let's be honest, it's lava. It's really, really hot. Thousands of degrees hot. And it's not food. It will burn your whole throat and neck and chest. It'll kill you. And but Ollie's up for that. He was, of course, in charge of putting people in the volcanoes and tossing them in for so many years. Good old Ollie. But you know what? Yes. So if it's someone I don't like, he gets real lava. If it's someone I like, or just a regular citizen, or a regular visitor, they get the chocolate cake with the chocolate sauce in it. But thanks, Jim. Good question. And by the way, it's worth mentioning that the reason the orchestra is the Robert Osborne Orchestra today is Robert Osborne just passed away. And I loved that guy. He was the host and author of so many things on movies. He loved old movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, but he knew every movie. He was the host on Turner Classic Movies of his own movie show. He was so knowledgeable. And one of the best times I ever had was he asked me to be his co-host one week. I went to New York where that filmed, and it was just terrific. I think he's great anyway. In fact, I told him I'm an Osborniac. I think he liked that, and that I'm one of the people who just thought he was great, and that I'm so loyal to him. And I had a terrific time doing that show and those shows. And you know what? It's worth saying, Robert, God bless you. You know what? You were great. And you knew everything, and you were happy to talk to folks who might have known something too. And it was worth mentioning here today. So, Robert would always get the real chocolate cake with the real chocolate ladle of sauce in it. Always. And I wouldn't care what he just said. And you know what, by the way? And by the Larry Miller Store. That's right, the Larry Miller Store, folks. Today, we're going to mention again that, you know what? We have 3 T-shirt designs that are just terrific, that I love, that Colonel Jeff loves. And one of the T-shirts says that, hey, my parents went to Volcano number 2, and all I got was this T-shirt. And it's not right in front of me. I might have missed a word on that. But it's just terrific. And they're there for the Larry Miller Drinking Society, which has its own T-shirt too. They're really good stuff, folks. And you know what you do to get there, number one, to get to the Larry Miller Store. We have so many good items on it too. To get there, what you do is you go to our website. And our website, as you ought to know, is LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the mountain? Tom Mix. Boy, get out of that guy's way. He's honking up a storm, and he has places to go. You do that, you go to our website, by the way, and there's a link there to the Larry Miller Store. And go there and see everything we have and buy a bunch of things. Not just because, well, we make them and we get money for it. Actually, that is the reason, come to think of it. Wait, it can't be just that, can it? You know what? We're glad to bring everything to you. But go to the Larry Miller Store and get some things from there. You'll be glad you did. And you know what? That brings us to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. This is a good one, folks. Colonel Jeff and I both like this one. A big businessman is in New York City for lots of big meetings. And he goes outside of his hotel, sticks his hand up and catches a cab. And he gets in, and the cabbie takes off. Like any good New York cabbie, he takes right off. He hits that pedal, and there they go, plenty fast. And this guy, folks, all of a sudden, this cab driver, and the businessman notices this, the cab driver gets to a red light and just blasts through it. He doesn't even slow down. And this is in Manhattan. I mean, no one should do that anyway, but he just goes right through the light, and the businessman just says, whoa, what did you do? Wow! The businessman says, you gotta, I think what you and I would have said, which is, why did you do that? Why did you just cut and go right through the red light like that? You can't do that. And the cab driver says, don't worry about it. My cousin does it all the time. And the businessman settles back down finally and straightens his tie and says, well, of all the nerve. And then, sure enough, the driver comes up to another red light and blasts right through that one, too. Again, doesn't even slow down. And other cars are going the other way. And the guy again, and the businessman flips out. What? Whoa, you did it again. Don't do that. It's too much danger. You'll get us both killed. And the driver says, don't worry about it. My cousin does it all the time. And the businessman, he's awake now. He's ready for those meetings now, but he's getting madder and madder. And so they're still driving along, and the driver comes up to a green light and stops dead. He jams on the brakes and just stops at the green light. And now the businessman is saying, well, this is really ridiculous. This is the end. What are you doing now? Why are you stopping at a green light? And he says, well, my cousin might have been coming. The other way, I guess. And he would have blasted through another red light. That cousin, I hope you like that one. And Colonel Jeff hopes so too. And as always, tell it to a friend or a family member if you like. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. That's the best string quartet ever. They live on Milleronia, by the way. They are full citizens. And terrific string quartet. Once one member, the viola player, actually had an accident some years ago. We had to find a new one. Well, it wasn't an accident. It involved a volcano. And that string quartet doesn't have any more accidents since then. But you know what? You know what, though? This is a lovely poem by a great writer. The writer is William Wordsworth, who lived from 1770 to 1850. He was British and was born in Cumberland, England. He described poetry as the most philosophical of all writing, whose object is truth, carried alive into the heart by passion. Boy, that sounds like a poet, doesn't it? And the Colonel and I both agreed he's got that name. I've mentioned this before, but you name a kid William Wordsworth, you're just guaranteeing he'll be a poet. How do you be anything else with that? He's not going to be a blacksmith. Have you met our blacksmith, William Wordsworth? What? No, he's got to be a poet. And he was a great one, though. And this is a poem of his called A Night Thought. Lo, where the moon along the sky sails with her happy destiny, oft is she hid from mortal eye or dimly seen, but when the clouds asunder fly, how bright her mien! Far different we, a froward race, thousands though rich in fortune's grace, with cherished sullenness of pace, their way pursue. Ingrates who wear a smileless face the whole year through. If kindred humors e'er would make my spirit droop for drooping's sake, from fancy following in thy wake, bright ship of heaven, a counter impulse let me take, and be forgiven. William Wordsworth knew what he was doing. Those are beautiful words put together. Oh boy, a counter impulse let me take, and be forgiven. Thank you, William. I bet you were the best of the most philosophical of all writing, of all poets. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show. MMM. Triple M, the magic movie moment. I love that theme. And you know what? This is why, one of the many reasons why the great Elizabeth Taylor was heading the dancers today, because she is in this movie. And there could have been no one better for that role. And the role is the same as the name of the movie, Cleopatra. What a great movie. How gorgeous. How huge. And what a cast. Richard Burton, Rex Harrison, and Elizabeth Taylor. Good Lord. Directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz. Boy, he knew what he was doing. So many great actors in this. And actresses. Hume Cronin and Cesare Danova, who played, a part harder to pronounce than her name. And Martin Landau, the great Martin Landau was in this too, playing Rufio. And, they all were. It was a huge cast. Roddy McDowell, and so many folks who just make it wonderful. Carol O'Connor was in this as well. And, folks, well, this is about Cleopatra, the great queen of Egypt. And if you haven't seen this, this starts and takes place in 48 BC. And, Caesar, played by Rex Harrison, comes, prancing into Egypt because he's looking for someone he wants to get and he wants to capture. Pompey. And he comes looking for Pompey. And Elizabeth Taylor's younger brother, Ptolemy, is running things at this point. He's the king of Egypt. And Elizabeth has sort of been, stepped aside, pushed aside. And Ptolemy wants to impress Caesar by this big visit. And how does he do that? He gives him Pompey's head. That's right, the head. And you have to say it like that because it's not attached to the body anymore. The Egyptians there caught Pompey who was living there and was respected by everyone. But when Caesar came, they all knew that Caesar had it in for Pompey. So Ptolemy and he sent his guys over there to grab Pompey, and they just cut his head off. They didn't have a big ceremony to it, They didn't have a thing where everybody marched down the big wide path there into the head chopping arena. I would have done that, by the way. If we chopped heads on Milleronia, I would make it a ceremony too. I don't think it changes the happiness of the victim. I don't think he's suddenly thinking, this is awful, but still it kind of puts a smile on my face because there's a big ceremony. But in any case, Ptolemy gives Caesar Pompey's head. But Cleopatra, who was pretty smart, has brought herself into Caesar's presence, rolled up in a carpet. This is back in Caesar's quarter, the big, huge part of the palace they give to Caesar. So one of Cleopatra's servants has this rug brought in as a gift to Caesar. Well, how do you like that? A nice rug, a beautiful rug. But they unroll it, and what happens? Cleopatra rolls out. They had rolled her up in it. And that's true from history, by the way. And it was in the movie. And boy, oh boy, Caesar flips out. I would too. And come on, when they unroll a carpet like that, and it's a gift, and you're doing really well, and you're the head of all of Rome, and who rolls out but Elizabeth Taylor? That's a pretty good day. Someone says to you there, you hungry now? You want to go into the mess hall and get something nice? I mean, anybody would just after Elizabeth Taylor rolls out, don't you have to say? Just give me a minute, all right? Not right now, because he flipped out and he fell for Cleopatra right off the bat. And boy, oh boy, Caesar is in Rome when Cleopatra visits. And Caesar's married, by the way. I guess it didn't matter much to Roman emperors, but it did to his wife. And Cleopatra comes on the big bark, which is a fancy word for giant boats or ships they had. They're made out of wood, and it was Barque. And Cleopatra comes into Rome like that, and Caesar flips out again and says, "Holy mackerel!" Well, the Roman version of that. And but you know what? Just a couple of months later, Caesar is assassinated. And, a couple of years later, what happens? Cleopatra meets Mark Antony, who was Caesar's, and this is all true, by the way, and Caesar's, confidant, his partner, and Antony, boy, he was smart and good, too. Great soldier and a great thinker. And Antony immediately falls for Cleopatra. And you know what, folks? The rest of the movie is so good. It's all so good. And there's a battle because Octavian, who's a very ambitious Roman, comes to Egypt to defeat Mark Antony and Cleopatra and take care of business his way. Essentially, that means kill everyone. And that happens at a place called Actium. But folks, it's a great story and a beautiful movie and so meaningful with Mankiewicz directed it beautifully. And you know what, though? That is a magic movie moment for me when, no matter how your day is going, when a servant or a couple of servants bring in a big, giant carpet rolled up as a gift to you from Cleopatra, and you unroll it, right there, right then, and Cleopatra is in there winking at you. I mean, that's a holy mackerel. And, folks, a magic movie moment to me. God bless Elizabeth Taylor and the great Richard Burton and the great Rex Harrison and the great Robert Osborne, who knew everything about that movie because, he knew everything about every movie. But I'll tell you, one of the little things that struck me last night, I've mentioned this already, that our older boy, who is a Marine and was stationed in the Middle East and came back a couple of weeks ago. And then after being debriefed and everything that they have to do to you, and he's home now and he's staying with us, and it just means the world. It's wonderful, and he loves it on Milleronia too, and it's. But boy, just coming back to the house, you know what, folks? When we're going back to the house on the mainland, and it was, well, last night I started talking to him about, I can't remember how this came into my head, but the great Alka-Seltzer commercial from my childhood. It was 65, 67, something like that. And this is an Alka-Seltzer. Why is an Alka-Seltzer commercial so important to you? This is an Alka-Seltzer commercial, I know you know, because it's about meatballs. In fact, if you want to look for it, all you have to do is go to, YouTube and type in at the top. If you just type in Alka-Seltzer and meatballs, this is what pops up. And I was telling it to my kid, and he said, boy, it sounds great. And I was making him some things for dinner, and I just turned around, finish it up, and bring a couple of more things out. And as soon as I turned around, he just popped into his phone what I just told you. That was a smart thing to do. I wouldn't have known how to find it, but he went to YouTube, and he typed in just those words, Alka-Seltzer and meatballs, and it popped right up, and he watched it and just howled, loved it. And then I came over and we watched it again together, and another 2-3 times after that. It's terrific, folks. And by the way, we're going to do our best. The Colonel and I were looking at it as we were doing our prep work for the show. We're going to do our best to put it on our Facebook. That whole commercial. It's terrific. It's so much fun. And you know the one, for goodness sake, the Italian man in New York is at his dinner table, a little square table, and his wife, with a smile, puts this plate down in front of him, and then she clasps her hands so neatly and so politely. It's really wonderful. And he says, hey, that's a summer spicy meatball. And you just hear the director's voice, which is very well played, coming up again. All right, let's do it again, Jack. I love that they named him Jack, by the way. My kid and I were both saying, he's Jack. He's not Italian. He's not a guy from the mountains of Italy. He's Jack. But it's Jack, and then he does it a couple more times, and the accent slips a little on one of them, and the director says again, accent Jack. And he's eating meatballs and spaghetti, and he goes through, and you hear and the wife, the actress playing the wife, is so good. She does the same thing on every take that they tie together, which makes it wonderful. She smiles, hands him the plate, clasps her hands, and just looks adoringly at her husband in their kitchen. And it's not a fancy kitchen, but why would it be? It's just good enough. And at any rate, folks, they go on and on again, and then one of the stage hands is shown on one take. They clap the clapper there, and someone says, take 59, and that just slides by until you say, 59? Take 59? Are you kidding? That's a lot of meatballs and spaghetti. And, oh, by the way, in the third one, which is funny, the meatball was too hot, far too hot. So when they said, in action, here we go, he cuts that meatball in half with the fork and pops half in his mouth and just goes, but doesn't overdo it. But he just put a boiling meatball in his mouth. At any rate, folks, they go through it, and just watch it. We'll try and get it up there for you. It's fabulous. This is not spoiling anything. It's fabulous how well it's done. And finally, on the last take of all their work, it gets it right. It goes, that's a summer spicy meatball. It's perfect, and the wife is smiling. And the second he finishes, just a second or two after that, slam, the oven door falls down. ruining the take. And it's so perfectly made. And the guy, oh boy. And after a couple of seconds pause, you hear the director just says, okay, everyone, let's go to lunch. And, this took, 59 takes. And it's just wonderful. We hope we get it on there for you. So the point is, you know what? The little things in life are wonderful. Good Lord, those were the days when through the 60s, probably the 50s too, I don't know, but through the 60s, good commercials were wonderful. They were terrific. And that one was a national commercial that everyone adored. Everyone knew that. And in fact, the Colonel was saying just before, there can't be anyone in America who was alive at that time who doesn't know the phrase spicy meatballs. Come on. Everyone saw that. And I hope you did too if you're old enough, for goodness sake. But boy, oh boy, you know what? Because yesterday I had an audition. And that's another thing that it was in a part of town on the mainland there, and it was in Marina del Rey. So the casting office is there, and these are really good top casting people. And this is for a good movie. This is a real project, and this is a top thing too. Great stars in it, great director. And you know what? And I was up for a good part in it, and I was very happy. But the point is, I drove down. I didn't know where I was going. I had to call my manager's assistant again just to say to him, we've done this a couple of times. Could you please look it up and tell me? I don't know where the heck this thing is. And he did, and boy, I got there, but not easily down there. And then the street that it's on is almost hidden. So I went past, to Washington Boulevard and past that. Then I passed an IHOP, and I had to turn around and go back. I called my, manager's assistant again. He said, it's between this street and that street. And I found it on the third try there and went down there, and it was parking on the street. This whole building was the casting company, but it was not a gigantic building. It was 2 or 3 floors, and but it was theirs, and about 50 feet wide, I guess, and good casting company. But I couldn't park in their parking lot, which in front, which is just for their employees. All right, that's fine. And so it's parking on the street. I'm a big boy. I can do that. But not yesterday. There was no parking on the street. It was a long street, but both sides, both ways, up and down, nothing. So at that point, frankly, and my appointment was for 10:30, at that point I said, you know what, this is ridiculous. This is an audition. I'm not moving in here. But I pulled into their parking lot, which is small. It had about 10, 12 cars in it. And I parked behind one, went up the driveway there and parked behind one. And that was it. I parked and I walked inside, and they had a clerk there, a young woman who was looked to be about 18 or something. And God bless her, but it's the kind of person where she wasn't listening that well. She took a long time to respond, like 3 or 4 seconds before answering you, and just didn't quite know what to say. And right, and I asked her, could you please get the sides down for me? The sides are the slang term for the scene you're reading for the audition. And I'd worked on it at home on the computer, but so I asked her to do that, and she didn't answer. She just, and then she kind of looked away, and she's wearing a headset and looked away long enough. I'm standing there. So about 2 minutes later, I said, pardon me, could I please get the sides for the scene I'm doing? Still no answer. And I felt like I was talking through prison glass. And in a way, maybe you are. And then someone from upstairs came down and brought it for her. And but I held my hand out, because if she took it, it would take another 6 minutes just before I could get it back from her. Pardon me, may I have the sides? But I went up there, folks, and had a very good time. a terrific audition. Haven't heard anything yet, but I'm very pleased, very proud of it. And so proud that afterwards, so now it's about 11:30, quarter to 12, and pardon me, I had another appointment at 1, but I felt so good. I had been up early. I got up at 6 to work on it, and I wanted a bite, not a huge bite, a light bite. So I went to IHOP, the one I had passed several times trying to find this place, and I felt so good. I pulled into IHOP, and I said, you know what? I'd like to go here. I don't think I'd been to an IHOP in 20 years. But I did. I pulled in, I parked, I went in, and it was a new IHOP. This couldn't have been more than 6 or 8 months old. And I thought, how do you like this nice? And the young woman behind the counters just said, 1? And I said, yes, it's 1, please. And she took a menu and some of the little menu that you never use at 11:40 in the morning on a Tuesday. What would the little menu be for? Brandy, whatever they're going to have. But I sat down. She sat me down at a nice table, a two-top, as they say, and I ordered myself a vegetarian omelet. And then I noticed, and made me happy. It's just a little thing, but it made me happy. And they brought it to the table. The waiter was very nice and smiled and brought me everything I wanted, which is not, who needs anything? They bring that thing, and I didn't need French fries or bread. I was I'm on a diet, and I think I can have half a vegetarian omelet. And, but I noticed there was a sign up on the table as I was eating the omelet, and I didn't even know this. The sign said, "Today is National Pancake Day." And I thought, well, that's pretty good. National Pancake Day. Wow. I mean, that's not as big as, our big holidays should be. That it's not a July 4th or something like that. But National Pancake Day? Well, how do you like that? And it said on it, free pancakes. Pancakes are free. As you know, IHOP stands for International House of Pancakes. And why not? And, so they know something about pancakes. And I said, the waiter came by and it said free on the sign for pancakes. And I said to the waiter, he asked if I wanted anything. And I said, would you please bring me 1 pancake? He said, yes, I know what to do. I know what you want. And he did. They don't make them in groups of 1, but so he put 3 on a plate that they did in the kitchen. They were freshly cooked. And it had a giant golf ball of butter on the top of the 3 pancakes. And they were the right size, by the way. They weren't like TV show pancakes where, you have to eat 50 of them. But these were about 8 inches in diameter. And I didn't want the butter because, after all, I just wanted a couple of bites. But, of course, once you say you don't want the butter, you spread the butter. And I did. I spread the butter. And then I cut up, in 3, 4, 5 bite sections. And then I looked over because at IHOP, they have a whole speed rack of pancake syrup. And they have different kinds, the blueberry kind, the raspberry kind. And there was one with a brown top called Old Fashioned. And that was good enough for me. In fact, that was perfect. And I said, besides, it's only 1 bite, and I don't want a ton of it. So, of course, you put on a ton of it. And you pour it. It goes, boy, that sound coming out of that, that jar of blub, 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 blub. It was great. And, yeah, not a little. And so you pour on, a big bunch, and put the jar back down. And it didn't seem, it was like a Twilight Zone jar because it didn't seem like there was any less in there, even though I had put a ton on. Not a ton, half a ton. All right, 3/4 of a ton. But, folks, I'm telling you, when the waiter came by again, I took a couple of bites of those panny cakes, and I always call them panny cakes because that's what my kids and I called them when I was their panny cake chef. And, you know what? The waiter came by again and said, how are those pancakes? I said, they're terrific. I said, please bring me a glass of skim milk. And he said, yes, I get for you. And he came back in another minute saying, no skim milk, 2%. I said, yes, that'll be great. Yes, please. And he brings me a big glass of 2% milk. And folks, I'm telling you, you know what? Those were so good. And that moment was so good. It made me think on that level of how nice to appreciate the smaller things in life sometimes. Here I had an audition, and it was a great audition. And after we finish our show today, I'm going to call my manager and my agent and say, okay, what are we going to do here? Because here's an idea I have, and I want to be aggressive with this. I want to go get that part, maybe another part in it. And you know what, though? How nice, folks, in a part of town you've never been before, to stop at an IHOP and celebrate and to have a nice omelet. I wasn't starving, but I had a bunch of that omelet was very well made, and the pancakes were delicious. And you know how it happens with pancakes, every so often the syrup dries up. So if they're out there on the table for more than 2 minutes with syrup, I don't know why, but they soak up that syrup. So you got to take the syrup jar again and pour more on. And it was even better. Where it went, I don't know. And by the way, the jar again didn't look like anything had been poured out. But folks, I had the best time. And I guess I ate about, a third or a half of the omelet. And I guess I ate about a half of the pancakes. And I guess I ate about a bucket of syrup. And you know what, though? It was just terrific. And I paid the bill there. The waiter was very nice, had such a nice smile. And folks, when I strolled out of there, and there's no worry there. It's not that you don't walk out because as if you've eaten just an entire turkey. It wasn't like that. It was just a good feeling of eating good food at a time when you've had a good morning. And I pass that to you because, well, there's a theme sometimes, and it's a good theme, folks. Take it easy, because every so often there's no need to rush. We all rush, of course, but not all the time. Every so often, well, stop and smell the roses. And I smelled them yesterday, and it's a good smell, folks. I offer you the same opportunity. When something happens in your life, well, you know what? Have some Alka-Seltzer and have some old-fashioned syrup and have a plate of pancakes. You'll be glad you did. I know it and you know it. And we know the same things. Homer is Homer and Pluto is a planet. So remember, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to and someone there cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. Never forget that, and always enjoy your easy times. We'll see you here next time.